Thank you for coming out when there's snow on the ground. Sure hit us quick, didn't it? I just want to start by thanking Joan and John for joining us tonight. And we're going to have just, I think, try to make this an informal conversation evening rather than lectures. But my interest was, so John Neggia, everybody knows John, but he was nice enough to join us. Well, it's been about a year now or more to discuss his World War II service. And then later on, John and I had a conversation about the post-war time period here in the Adirondacks and in Port Henry and Moriah that I thought was very interesting. And what was it like coming back? What was that post-war time period like as we're leading up to the baby boom and the big economic boom that would happen post-war? What was it like for service people returning? And also what it was like for everyone to welcome them back and just enter this new phase of life here. So I think let's make this sort of a two-way conversation tonight rather than lectures. So if you have questions, please jump in. But I think I'll start by turning it over to Joan and introduce yourself and your background and history, and then take it from there. Yeah.
As all of you know, my name is Joan, Daby, and I was historian for 20 years. I came to Port Henry in 1940. I entered third grade in 1940. And I wrote down some things here that I thought they wanted me to tell you about the old days, what I remember. So I'm going to give you just a little bit for now, and we'll go back and forth with Joan. After spending the 1939-40 grade school year in second grade at my Aunt Peggy and Uncle Elmer Patnood's farm on Crown Point, my mother and brother and I moved to Port Henry to live with my mother's parents, Fred and Cecilia Williams, on 14 Rice Street, which is now Rice Lane, down the way to the end of it. There was one very small bathroom for all of us at that time. Room enough for a toilet, tub, sink, and a radiator tucked in the corner. My grandpa had, by then, closed his barber shop. He had a barber shop right up here in the main street where the park is now. And he moved his barber chair in the dining room, and I went to third grade, and my brother, Bubby Crawford, Norman, went to first grade. One thing in my grandmother's kitchen was very narrow, and she had a small kerosene stove and a small kitchen sink. The wash machine was a large Grigger washer, which even in my day, at that time, I saw it, and we used it right up into early 50s. It was pushed into a little space off her kitchen. The clothes were hung outdoors to dry, even in the winter. And in the winter, then you brought them in and you laid them on different things to dry. In the apartment beside Graham's, there was a large stove. I don't know whether you people ever saw the old stoves that were either heated by wood or fuel. Hers happened to be with fuel. And it's up above it. Do you have the places where you put your pans? On the left-hand side was an area where they had water that would be heated. Up above the heating elements there were two spaces for warming your food in that area. And that was used for quite a while in that area. And we had radiators for heat. Sometimes when I was cold, I would sit on them. They'd warm them up a little bit. They weren't too big. But anyway, in Another thing I wrote was bacon was a luxury, and steak was more of a luxury at that time. Margarine, I don't know whether your folks ever told you about these. There was like a pound of lard and a little bead inside, and the bead would break and you'd color, and that would be your colored margarine. During the war, we had to use ration stamps for some of the items in the grocery store. We had a coal furnace. I remember the trucks taking the curved metal sheet and pushing it under our porch floor and on into the cellar and pouring coal down the chute. Some vegetables were kept in the cellar in sand. Potatoes for one, probably beets, carrots. I'm going to stop at this moment and see if there's any questions that any of you have for me at this point about what I've talked about at the moment. What you want to know.
You mentioned rationing, Joan. I know in Britain that carried on past the war. Did it last here into the 40s?
Excuse me?
Rationing. So I know in Britain
not-
it extended past
Yeah.
the armistice. Did that happen here as
Yeah,
well?
that I don't remember, but I
Yeah.
remember going to the store with the ration
The books.
coupons.
Yeah.
at the time. I believe it was right during all the war,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah. Did you have the little plastic coins as well, the little chits?
I didn't see the plastic coins. I only saw the paper.
The books, the stamps.
At that time. One thing I want to tell you, during the war, for the movies over here, movies at that time were like 10, 25 cents at that time. But during the war, there was a time when if you want to go to movies, you were supposed to bring metal to get in. So my brother and I would take a cart and we'd go around and get scrap metal. And then you were allowed in for the movies.
Oh.
That was used,
Was this theater?
this theater,
Was there one?
Essex
One that
Theater.
burned.
The one that
Essex
first-
Theater.
Yeah, but there was one.
Empire Theater.
That Empire, no, that
Next to the
was
bank.
before,
Yeah.
that was almost gone by the time I was here.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw it, and I did go in once, and you, just very back in my mind, I could see a little bit inside and going and back where they used to have the operas and different concerts and things in the back.
Because I remember my mother saying that her and her brothers would come over in the wintertime here in Vermont,
Uh-huh,
just across the lake to go to the theater. The theater was there.
right, yes.
Yeah.
And in the historical society, we have little posters like of different things that were held there. It's very interesting.
It's too bad he can't be here, but Walt Rushby,
I'm sorry, Tom?
Walt Rushby's still alive. He went with his father was the protectionist, and he was a little kid,
Uh-huh.
Walt. And the story about the guy that burned it, Walt is still furious. His father, the guy set a timer to go off, and it went off when his father wasn't in there, it burned the place to the ground.
Ooh,
You know that, and he went to jail for it, because
yeah, oh, yeah.
it's interesting, and Walt can tell you, he told me the whole story.
Yeah, you
I
gotta write
finished
it
about what
down.
was it like in there. Well, I can't, the guy's name, it's all in the history books, eh?
Right.
Hey, Connor,
Why did you?
money. He was Luciators in
Yeah,
town.
they were rivals,
So
they were rivals,
And he wanted to burn it to get the insurance money, and he hired a guy,
yep,
electrician, to set the timer up.
you're
Yeah,
right.
it's all, and he said, luckily his father wasn't in there, and anybody else.
You're right.
Yeah, and John Sweet, God rest his soul,
That's
he
me.
said that he used to sneak in there.
I'm gonna check on Daddy again in 5:30.
Right here.
Where was
Next to the barber shop, but it's gone.
village offices?
Right.
Yeah, that was finally destroyed in 1941, and then same thing in 1941, the new village hall.
Johnny Sweet was telling me that as kids, they didn't have any money.
Yeah,
And when the theater was let out through the back door, the kids would sneak in and get a seat. And John said, he told me the dog's name. He said, I had a dog that wouldn't leave me everywhere. He said, so I snuck in the movie theater, and the dog stayed out there. Well, he said the dog ended up coming through the front, and sat next to him in the theater. And he said the owner of the theater came down and told John, he said, I don't think your dog has a ticket, and I don't think you do either. And he said, he walked me out the door. And John could tell that story.
This,
Not a good thing.
this belongs to Mr. Trout right here, but on loan, we figured out the year. Do you remember, Tom? I don't
30
remember what the.
30 to 30, 36, I looked
Yeah.
up the.
We were able to look at when the movies were released and what the days of the week
Is
were.
that the town hall?
That's just here.
This is Empire Theater.
That's
Yep.
Empire, yeah.
We're showing The Three Musketeers and Let Freedom Ring. Yeah, and Tailspin. I don't recognize that one. Swing Sister Swing. I don't.
There was always a double feature, remember? There's always,
These must be these are the coming attractions, but
Yeah, we have,
I certainly know The Three Musketeers.
yeah. Oh, that was good.
There's a reason to get pirate.
I'm trying to think of the other one.
And then this is the building itself. Pass that around. That's you can still see the wall lines from the building run right between the bank and the assessor's.
Yeah, here's a picture of
there's
the,
no picture.
Well, that's a much nicer picture. Yeah.
with a bank beside it, you know, yeah, they're like, this is the picture with the two. I don't know whether you can see that or not. With the village hall and the bank right there.
We can pass those around too, Joan. If you don't- if they come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Joan, what we're talking 1940s now, right? Late 40s, early 50s.
Uh-huh.
We have the mines. What are the other industries that are supporting this community?
Well, at that time, of course, I was just a child in the school. I know the mines were very busy,
Sure.
and John can attest to that.
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was primarily the mines. Was the mill operating?
oh,
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
John, do you want to talk a little bit about,
the mines.
About the mines?
well, a little bit about what industry and employment was like as all the boys are returning from Europe and the Pacific? What was it like trying to find work and reintegrate into
All right,
the workforce?
before they went to service, when the mines were running, the mines were Whitby Sherman mines. They were
Right.
Whitby Sherman, and they produced ore, and they had felt hats, no hard hats. Felt hat with a pit lamp on it.
Right.
And you carried a little carbide can with you. And when you ran out of light, you'd take it down, put some carbide in it, and you close it, then you turn this little lever, and it had a little water fountain, and a little reservoir of water.
Right.
And a little water, and it'll, heat up, and then you go like this, and the flame shoots out. And that's what they had for working in the mines back then. That was back in the 30s.
Right.
And then Republic Steel came in 1938. They were negotiating in 37 and that, but they came in 38 because in 1937, Fernandez got killed. Young Fernandez. Paul Hooker was killed. My brother was killed. And others were killed. I can't remember all of them now. That was in 1937.
Okay.
And then when Republic Steel came in 1938, they revised everything, made more safety this,
Right.
safety that. And they saved a lot of lives by doing all this safety stuff.
So you were seeing a decline in safety and overall management of the mines towards the end of.
Things were less safe towards the end of Whitby Sherman.
Well, the mines are never safe.
No, of course.
They did do a lot of work in the mines, and they had instructions what to do and what not to do, and it did save a lot of lives. But it claimed a lot of lives.
Sure.
Many times it claimed probably 3, 4, or sometimes up to 6 lives at a time, especially when the skip broke. The skip was the man cage.
Right.
It carried 48 men underground. And one time it broke. When it broke, I forgot how many men got killed going down through. They weren't in the skip. The skip just tore everything up. I don't know how many men got killed, and then there was others that got blown up in the mines
Right.
accidentally. So there was a lot of lives lost in the mines right up to the time they closed. And they closed in 1968, and then they were taking stuff out, and they officially closed, it was 1970, officially. But they were closed in 1968, because that was the last time I worked, in 68.
Did you go right into the mines when you returned from Europe? Or?
No, when I returned from Europe, I didn't have any job. There was no jobs.
Right.
You had to go and scramble anywhere to get jobs. There was one time that Ditter Orr and Bo Chaput and we went to New Jersey and looked for work. And we found work, and we used to come home every weekend. Now, we used to travel from here to New Jersey every Sunday morning, early in the morning to start work Monday. And Friday, we leave there and come home, be home for Saturday. We used to do that back and forth.
My train or my car?
And back then we, New Jersey, I got 75 cents an hour. When I was 16 years old, I quit school to go to work. And I worked at the Grover Hills where they were building them. I got 59 cents an hour.
So 75 wasn't bad.
Well, prior to that, I got 70 cents an hour when we were putting in the railroad and switchback with Paul Salerno and Chapasso, Phil Boyle, all of them good working men. We got 70 cents an hour on the railroad. In Grover Hills, we only got 59 cents an hour, and we were glad to get the job.
Sure. What were you doing in New Jersey?
What's that?
What did you find for work in New Jersey?
I found what Bull Chaput and Ditter Orr went to Richard Mines. They went to work in the mines there, and I wouldn't go to mines. And I got a job at Acme Metal, where you spray sinks, cabinets, and all that. And I got 75 cents an hour.
Huh.
Did you drive everything?
We
in a
drive.
car? Drive in a car?
I had a car, and we drove. Because Bull and I would change, driving back and forth.
I think I saw a hand, yeah.
When you spoke about rationing during the war, I can remember over here, my Millie and all, I'm saying rubber, you couldn't get rubber, it was all for the war effort. So anybody that had a car that had a tire, they had patches upon patches of anything you could think of to keep the car going. You know, they had to be creative because rubber, you couldn't get a tire. I mean,
Right.
You were just, if you had a tire, that's what's been. Of course, they all had flats, and she said, you ought to see the contraption they got them to, they had to be,
Yeah.
I had to think outside the box, but she said it was quite a deal to get anything with rations, especially rubber. There weren't no tires for any civilians.
Martin Strabo said he used to go up to the dump and have tires that were wore out, holes in them, and stretch them over the tires that
Any
were
way
holes in
they
them,
could,
and just
yeah.
drive 10 miles an hour. Up in the dump, bad spots where there was traffic.
Yeah, that was pretty rationing.
Well, I had an old Chevy back then, and believe me, you can see the road when you were driving. We used to wire the seat out to the frame. Frank Lehander and I, we were working from here to Massachusetts, and we used to come home on weekends, go back early in the morning. And you drive around, you can look, you can see the road. That's how we cobbled up our cars.
Oh, yeah.
But we got by.
Yeah, but
We got by. It was rough.
So, John, you went from working in the industries in New Jersey. When did you come back and find employment here? And was that in?
I found employment here in 1948 to Republic Steel.
Okay.
Because it was shortly after that, that young lady worked in the warehouse. I remember this young lady.
1952.
52?
Yeah.
Joan, do you remember seeing a sort of rebirth? It seems like there was an economic downturn following the war just because of the influx of folks coming back and the reduction in production from the war effort. Did you see that sort of come back up over the next few years?
The most production Republic Steel ever put out was during the war, and there was only 1 year they put out 1 million tons.
Wow.
That was the most they've ever put out. And then they had fellas like Phil Lanke, Sam Kateris, Tony Trapasso, and then they worked for Sprague and Henwood, and they used to go around drilling different places and get sample cores, how much ore was in the mines around Mango, Moriah, and all over. And Sam Kateris told me one time, he said there is right now 30 million tons of ore in the ground. Wow, never been touched. They closed it.
These, the core sample that we're passing around right now is recovered from Mill 7 before demolition. There were racks of them, of core samples, where it came from, what the assay ended up being. So they'd take a sample, melt it down, separate it by density, figure out what the quantity of iron was. And all of those records were still there, just salvaged.
They give you a bag with the,
Yeah,
every
saw them,
mineral
Tom.
is,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
magnesium, all percentage right down to zero. So they did that in the lab up there.
It's really
It was
neat.
thousands of samples, I took a few.
They'll be completely different colors, different
This
materials.
was the powder that was coming after they crushed it.
Yeah.
We have samples of that, of course, down at the museum.
How about the town, like, what did Witherby look like back in the 40s?
Borrow.
It didn't look like it does now. What did it look like at one point?
Everybody says, what went on in Witherby during the mines? Well, if you want me to tell you place by place, it's probably easier for me to tell you, well, there were so many bars, so many grocery stores, so many clothing stores. I can tell you from one end right up to the other end if you want to hear it that way.
Kitty corner all the way down.
Tell us
Start at
everything.
kitty corner.
Now, we're starting the opposite
We're
way.
starting the opposite way, working up, okay.
Starting the opposite way, Coble's had a meat market. Coble's. And right after Coble's was Shorty Dragoon's restaurant, bar. And then right after Shorty's, there was this block building, and it was the Miners Club. That was a bar room. Miners Club, and alongside of it, in the same block, was Koblenz and Green, and they sold clothing. That all burnt through the war. It all burned. And then after that came this other block, and it was Zukas, Tom Zukas. He used to sell gas, Gulf gas on the front, or you take the hose, put it in, and you crank it. I can see Frank Laheno doing it. He's cranking gas in his car, and the hose drips a little bit. Frank picks that hose up, make sure he gets everywhere. So he sold gas, and then right next to the same block was Mickey Mouse, a bar room. Mickey Mouse, and then a pool room, and then Bennett's clothing store. Bennett's clothing store. And then after Bennett's clothing store was Charlie Anderson lived there, where all of you know now is where maybe Forcus is. That maybe and Louis built that out. That was never built out. That porch was all straight. They built that out for ice cream and soda and stuff. Maybe Forcus. And then came Central Restaurant. And then after the Central Restaurant came the Gillette block. Everybody says the Koblenz block. It's the Gillette block. And the Gillette block had the AP grocery store, Gillette clothing store, and on the other end was Bartomeu's store for ice cream and soda for the kids, Bartomeu's. And then after that block came Spalding's. And they sold groceries and merchandise and hardware and grain. And then after that came the post office. And then Farrell's Market grocery store where they sold meat, groceries. And after Farrell's was a place called Jinglin' Joe's. It was a Roselli. Jinglin' Joe's where all the kids went to hang out, and they used to play pool, and these ping pong machines they used to have. You put a nickel in, you ball and shoot and watch it go all over. So that was Jinglin' Joe's, but later it became Tom's Tavern. And then after that was Mrs. Dwyer's place. and then Carlo Calabre's home next to that, and then next to that was Frankie Calabre's with a little grocery store. And after the grocery store was Bartuli's little repair shop. He sold shoes, and then it was I can't think of the name of it, but I can remember Mrs. Garcia. You ever remember Mrs. Garcia used to cook for the diner years back? Well, she had a little place there where he just eat, a little small place. And then after that was Tony Arthur's grocery store meat. And then after that was the kitty corner. All of that was on one side of the road, all the way down through. And on the other side, starting on the bottom, used to be Barbetta's shoe repair shop. And Mike and Joe Bartuli's barber shop. Mike drowns in Barber Pond fishing. He was a barber, he was a young kid, he was drowning. Barber shop. And then shortly after that, across from Shorty's, down in the hole a little bit, was Frank Mazat. He done shoe repair shop. And on the other side of him, I don't know his last name, but we used to call him Lollipop. But Frank Mazat done shoe repair shop there. And as you go over, that's where Bennett's lived, the next house, because he had the clothing store across the street. And then George Pepper and Pete Nichols was in the next house. And then right on the corner there was a little dry cleaning place, small dry cleaning place. And then when they went out, it became, and they built up, was Archie's Barber Shop. You probably remember Archie's Barber Shop, Archie Roselli. His brothers had a barber shop in Bangor. So Archie's Barber Shop, and then across the road was T.J. Cody, where he sold fishing tackle and punches and little candy bars and all that. We used to hang around there all the time. Shorty's, and then after Shorty's was this movie hall, the long red building. It was a movie hall, and then it became a pool room, and then the tail end, it became Emily Ida's variety store. You remember that?
I remember that.
And that's Witherby. That's all of them buildings is right there in Witherby. And at times they used to close it off right there by Central and Archie's Barber Shop. And from there down they used to have dances on the road. Close it to all traffic. They used to have dances all night long. It was a booming town.
All in places.
Sounds like a bar for about every 10 people.
Every 10 feet.
And the bar rooms were small, and some of them had 2 and 3 waitresses in their little small bar rooms. Some of your homes is probably bigger than bar rooms. You know, your living room bigger than bar rooms. They had 2 or 3 waitresses. That's how much packed they were in there.
John, tell them about the ladies that used to carry their little babushka, I think you called it. The ladies would drink out of their, going down the street.
Talking about ladies.
You told me that
carrying
once.
Drinks down the street.
Oh, they used to, well, then they worked in the mines. There was a lot of Polish people.
Right.
I mean, they were poor. They were hard-working ladies. And some of the ladies married 2 and 3 times. They lost their husband. They haven't gotten to live on. So they remarried. And a lot of them used to get feeling pretty good in the afternoon. They used to drink gin. Used to take a little bottle of venison. They'd go in the bar, get a little gin, and then go out and drink it. But and in the change house, every Saturday, 10 to 12, no men were allowed in the change house. That was the day that the women, the Polish women around the area, took their showers in the change house. 10 to 12. Because they had to get out of there by 12 because sometimes some of the miners come up early. But 10 to 12, nobody around that change house, dude. That was all left for the women. And then they bring in your clothes, take the shower. And the women didn't take a shower by themselves. They took a shower all together like the men did.
No wonder the miners wanted to get out early then.
That's why the Polish women lived a long time. They were strong.
Hadn't heard that since.
Yeah, Willoughby was one booming place.
The change house, that's the one that's on the corner of Joyce Road and.
Right,
Yeah,
that's the
okay.
change house.
Okay.
I think Gilbo had furry or something in there.
Yeah.
Gilbo.
Yeah,
Tommy. Yep.
That's the change house.
okay.
I heard the story, maybe you did too. It's that at one time, they needed more help in the mines, and they brought in some Chinese, and they said, you know, that was heavy stuff. The big Polish wheelbarrows, they said they couldn't do the work, they just were too frail and small.
They
The
used to
wheelbarrows
go-
were 500 pounds, and the big
They used
Polish
to go
guy
to
had to.
Pennsylvania and bring people in from Pennsylvania. Some of them stood, and a lot of them didn't because it was too cold. Because see, Pennsylvania they had coal mines, and a lot of them were good workers. A few of them stood, but a lot of them didn't stay. And in that time, there was a few colored people worked in the mines. They lived in Port Henry, some lived on Spanish Sound. But overall, not that many. There was some, and there were some nice ones. Homer Matthew, I can just see him used to be on the ambulance all the time.
Walton.
Mr. Walton?
Walton.
Alan Walton.
Walton.
Yeah, very nice colored folk. They were all good. They were all treated good.
So Witherby had a lot of bars and
Yeah.
a lot of stores,
But only one post office, they
and
said.
one post office. But how about Port Henry? Port
Port Henry
Henry
had
must
a lot
have
of
had a lot of stores.
Because I didn't know Mineville or Willoughby until I went to work up there. I was just stuck right here in Port Henry. So then, there was a telephone office, I brought a picture of that for you. Across from the Moriah Pharmacy, there was this switchboard that was there. I don't even pass that around, probably, in the room if they bring it like that. And my aunt happened to be one of the operators there. And that was back, oh gosh, that's gotta be back in the 20s, 30s. And so after school, when I graduated, or came close to graduating in 1950, I went over there to see if I could get a job. Because it was built, of course, with a little more switches on there. But on the right hand, I was left-handed, and Em left-handed. And on the switchboard, all the writing had to be done on the right. So there I go, I didn't get the job because you had to use your hands. I'm left-handed and I had to be like this, but yet you had to put the wires into the different places.
You must remember when we would pick up the phone and the operator would say,
Okay.
like, I think Dr. Glavin was number one, he'd say
Yeah,
number
it
52.
was they're
please.
like 2 and 3
Dr.
digits.
Glavin
yeah,
was one.
times, yeah. And at first, of course, it was a party line.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you lifted up the phone and you heard somebody, then you would say, okay, we'll just
Hurry
hang
up
up.
and
Or
get
you want to
done.
listen and see what they're doing, what they're saying.
Yeah, 5, 6 people had to
So,
share the same
and
one.
then you have to wait and get back on the phone.
You can ask the operator what time of day it was too.
Right, yeah.
They
right.
tell you.
And, let's see, I got so many pictures and so much information.
Off the top of your head, Joan, what was the schooling like for our local kids? We weren't in one building yet, I
The Port
assume.
Henry High School,
Yeah,
okay.
that was built
The
in
Port
the
Henry High
30s.
School, of course, maybe a lot of you do remember, we had a boys' entrance and a girls' entrance. So the boys, I can visualize practically every room in that place. I not only went from 3rd grade to graduate, but then I worked for Mr. Beebe until we went up to the new school in 1968. The boys had their locker rooms were over here on this side. And the girls, of course, when they're on that side, their locker room was on this side. The gymnasium had 2 balconies. You had on the side, and overlooking the gymnasium and a stage. I can visualize it when you look at it between the boys' entrance and the girls' entrance, that was the homemaking room, as I remember.
Mr. Smart.
And when you went to the girls' side, I can remember there was a shop was there on the right.
Mr. Webster taught shop at
Yeah,
that
on
down
the
the
right.
stairs, yeah.
Yeah, and then further down was the music room. You have to go upstairs, and that's where there was a bathroom going up through here, the girls and the other boys. In the nurse's office on the second floor, way back. And then there was typing room. Miss Hennessy had typing. Miss Ross had social studies.
And went there,
Uh,
Canizero was the English
The
teacher
right-
next door.
excuse me?
Mr. Canizero was next to,
Yeah.
was English,
That
and then
time.
she was on the end.
And,
Girl, we're done.
anyway, when I was in school, and Miss Smart tried to teach me to write with my right hand. That didn't work.
Didn't take.
That didn't work.
John, what was were classes separated? What was the reason for the two sexes entrances?
You got me. That's the way we do it.
I travel a lot all over.
We all,
It's amazing how many older schools has the girls and the boys. I
But-
remember from Port Henry.
But classes were
it was just
combined.
entrance, and then you went to your own rooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just went through
You
the
were
door.
together.
Yeah.
It's just entrance.
Interesting.
In the morning, you had to go in the girls' side and the boys on the
At
boys'
the
side.
time, yeah. Yeah, it was
And
interesting.
the school was K through 12?
Excuse me?
The Port Henry school was K through 12?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
They had kindergarten?
Yeah, it was.
Did Port Henry have kindergarten?
Yeah,
Kindergarten,
yeah, they did.
first grade.
Ginger Courier taught.
As we're in the 40s and 50s, Joan, are any of the small outlying schoolhouses still operating, or is this the central Moriah
Well,
school?
for Port Henry.
Just, okay.
It was Port Henry. We had Cheever,
Cheever was still
Cheever School.
operating at that time.
and also the South School down where I live, on the corner. It was called the South School.
Mhm.
And of course, then you had your Catholic school, the bottom of Convent Hill. And then later on, they built, up here in St. Patrick's, they built the Catholic school.
Yep.
But after the Moriah Central School opened, they had so many good things for a public school. It was a few years that then the Catholic school closed because they all went up to the public school.
It was just as good or better education in
Right,
public
right,
school.
right.
Interesting.
But you're forgetting,
still had
there's
their
quite a few of
religion.
us in this room now went
Yeah.
to Sherman Collegiate Institute.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
God's country is called Moriah Farmers.
I like the name.
One of 13.
We had, this was just a small picture of the school there,
Yeah.
the boys and girls side, can you think that? So, we had one picture I wanted to show you was where the boys and girls would go for soda. Of course, these are all off. I'm in there right now. The library. I have too many in here. This is the school again. Yeah. We went to Breen's, what they call Breen's. It was a place for soda and ice cream. The men got their cigars there. I hope I should put a little thing on there. Right in the very end, I suppose. Here we go.
Another Cars newsroom was the other one.
This one's before cars. This is, Ted Breen had a soda place, and it was right where the Chamber of Commerce is right now. And you go in, it was a popcorn first, then your cigars, and your root beer, and your soda fountain, And behind the stone fountain were about 6, possibly more, 6 wooden booths. And in the booths, you would notice all the carvings that over the years, the kids would put the different carvings on there. Jane loves Tom and so forth.
Scratch it out a week later.
So I didn't,
Bring a grinder
I
in.
didn't get in there until I was about 14 and you could leave school. But when you leave school, you could leave at noontime and go home for lunch and then come back.
Yeah.
And then,
Hot stuff.
so that was good.
Gotcha, Beth.
Excuse me?
The drugstore we had over here beyond the Lee House, there was one called Murray's and
Gus Murray, right?
Gus Murray's, yeah. And at that time, Gilbo's, when I went into Gilbo's, that was in the early 50s, well, late 49s. When you go into Gilbo's, there was a stairway that went down. And down in the stairway, down in the floor were glassware they were selling. And up on the floor when you go in the back was a few stairs. And that's where Betty Gilbo taught dancing. That's where I used to learn dancing, toe tap, acrobatics, and so forth we had there. And she would put on a show at the Essex Theater on the stage there every year. So that's where I think I got my love for dancing. And let's see, then it became Sagan's, no, excuse me, Murray's.
A&P
I think
store
of the
over
name
there,
of
was
the
there?
one it's called.
Yeah, Joan's the jewelry.
There's another,
Yeah, the Joan's the jewelry.
yeah, got that one. Let me try this
Coble
name.
Market.
Davis's.
Was it Coble's or Port Henry? The
Coble's,
same
yeah.
people as in what it-
No.
Yeah, we had Gilbo's, and then it was Coble's, Jones the jeweler.
Right.
Then we had a big, very big building on the corner here, on that corner.
A&P was there somewhere.
Across the road
Okay,
by
huh?
where Mountain Lakes is now. right
Excuse me.
On that side.
A&P?
The A&P was over here on this street,
Yeah.
and Davis's store, Castle's were Carpenter's Taxes now. And then beyond that were grocery stores.
Was there a funeral parlor on the corner? for
On the
that
corner,
road?
there was a Harlan's, it wasn't called Harlan's at the time, but there was a funeral parlor. And Harlan's had it last when we come up here, yes.
Where was the Union Free Academy?
School, before the Port Henry School,
Oh,
yeah,
that was before, okay.
before the Port Henry School was built, yeah, it's on there, yeah.
This is David.
Um,
Oh, we have a question.
Question about,
Question?
What can you tell me about when they settled Henry Green's estate? I know it was in the old
Say that again.
Overshine building, and I know that it'd be John McDonald and Tom Tom's father was a caretaker for the Greens, correct?
Where was this again you're talking about?
This is all I know. That it was the largest estate settled at the time, multi-million-dollar estate, settled at the old Overshine block. It was Hetty Green. She owned the railroad.
Uh-huh.
You know anything
No, I
about
don't know anything about that, but I do know, before it has changed the way it is now, there was an unemployment office up there, which I worked at when
Second floor.
the second floor on the left.
Big stairway.
Mr. Krakis had a lawyer place, and at one time there was a photographer up there as well, on that second floor. Yeah. Why? It's come back sometimes.
for either of you, what was during this mid-century period, what was happening with our waterfront? Was that active? Was it industrial? Was it recreational?
Just beaches.
Beaches,
Just
bathing
beaches.
beach? Yeah.
Just beaches. I can remember, for me, for going from Rice Street we go over and back of a house and down the embankment onto the LC&M track and walk around the track a ways. And there was a pole that went, or a pipe that went down to the down to the railroad track at the bottom. We cross that railroad track and we go to the small beach, then we walk up to the big beach over there. That's the way we.
Wasn't it Sherman build that beach, the original Port Henry beach, they had that beach sand trucked into it?
They had-
Not truck, but railroad.
I know down in Bullwiger they had to truck in
No, that was-
tailings and things down here.
Factory down there.
Up here, that had to be dug out as well, yes.
My understanding is it's filled from just about up to 9N down to the waterfront as you're down towards the town dock, that most of that has.
Which beach you talking
Yeah,
about?
water.
Where the town beach, the main pier, the
Two
main,
town beaches.
Yeah, the
North.
water.
That's Port Henry Beach.
Yeah. My understanding is most of that land is filled from
Yes, but
just,
they
The
brought
water,
it in with
yeah,
the
the
Sherman.
There's a sign at the bottom of the hill where it showed where the water had
Yeah.
come all the way up through there. Where Vince lived, there was all water up through there at one time. Okay.
And it's my understanding that, so the story goes, my grandfather was the one who had sand actually brought in to Port Henry Beach to cover up those tailings back in the day. That's what we were told. The story was, we went around the tables at the powerhouse. So,
Yeah, pictures of that power
Maybe.
house down there.
that's how I know.
Joe, you lived on Rice, was the beach down right below you?
We had, it was off to the left, that's why we would go down the embankment and down in back of the Witherby wall, there was a Witherby wall right around there, which was right over here. And then.
Then across the
there was a
railroad
bit-
track.
Oh, wait, there was a small beach, very small, but we had ourselves, the small beach. Not even the beach, it was small. Then that's why we went to the big beach.
We used
And
to
of
go
course,
down by
mostly-
where Obershon is, that street by, what was the bar down?
That's Congo Hill?
Yeah, keep on going, down the bank, down State Bank, across the railroad tracks, usually stop, put a penny on there, one bundle. And, when you were trying to squash it, then the beach was right there.
Yeah.
Better than going to sidewalk.
Yeah.
we have about 10 minutes left, if, so I can open it to any questions or topics folks want to get off onto.
Mr. Neggi? During the war, down in Kennedy Row, I see here, they had the largest concentration of guys who were drafted down there from Elizabeth Street.
Elizabeth Street, there was
Pat Salerno told me that once.
a lot of them were drafted from Elizabeth Street in World War II.
You validate that?
I got that sheet.
I don't know.
Jack Troll, 26 kids off that street,
26
World War
were
II, 26. Well, for instance, the Chinese jail, right?
Yeah.
Pat Salerno lived there. It was a small house.
Why is it called Chinese
40
jail?
kids, 40 people lived there. It was 4 families, 10, 11, 12 in each family. Pat.
That's all.
Zizzos, he could name every one of them. And they lived in that house with one bathroom in each house. I mean, they had kids, 1, 2, 3. And of course, a lot of brothers went off that street because they were just 17, 18 off to work. So 26 went, and I think one or two were killed, Jibo and somebody else. But I've got the list at home.
Montagnolo, Mr. Montagnolo.
Montagnolo, yes. And, yeah, so that's just but that street was just full of kids. It's just, that was, they called Dog Street. Jack Trout told me that's where he grew up. And yeah, it's, that Chinese jail, I couldn't
What
believe
is
it.
that? What is the Chinese jail?
Well, it's the Chinese jail. Joan can tell you more than I can about the
That's
Chinese
it,
jail.
that's Sweeterland,
What's that?
the Chinese jail.
Right, it was a house, really. It was right next to the road. If you go down there now, it's down, but it's right by the road.
Where illegal aliens came in, they had to put them there, and then they had.
Right, when they came down across the border,
Right,
they had to take the Chinese people and
Yeah.
hold them up till they got them verified,
yeah.
whatever, how, anyway, so it was like a Chinese. And at the
They were
town
legal
hall
up.
now, because a lot of these Chinese people are looking for their heritage, they've got got the list of every Chinese person that ever came through here.
Yep.
I can tell you.
We've got a
And
couple,
people
two
look to
books
see if
with
their
the,
parents came through Port Henry,
with
and
the
stayed in
Chinese
Chinese
pictures
jail.
of them.
But the house itself was just about this size of this, 4 apartments. Pat said, and he could name every kid that lived in each one, started with boys and girls. And he said, you know, they knew how to survive, let's put it that way.
Speaking about the Chinese, where Tim Bryant had his Red Brick restaurant, at one time, a Chinese had that, and it was called Jack's at one time. That was when I knew that, because I went in one time, there for that, called Jack's.
That was a bar or tavern, or,
Excuse me?
that was a bar or restaurant?
No, it's just a restaurant,
Restaurant,
yeah, Chinese restaurant.
called Jack's, of course.
Yeah.
I think that's the one Mr. Petoskey brought up, a cook, didn't he? From Albany, and he had a Chinese cook. He's the guy that went over and started it back 100 years ago, whatever.
Johnny, about the town of Moriah, they had a lot of bar rooms and restaurants in the
Yes,
town of Moriah.
Oh, yeah.
The Lee House had a bar.
Yep.
Yeah,
Over
yeah, I
there.
know that.
Over that.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Johnny, what do you remember about Mineville? I'm sure you remember, there were a few bars over there too.
Well, Mineville only had 2 bars. Where Oak Road, and then down below where Bill Anderson was Mike's bar, Mike Durak, and that changed hands, one hand, whatever. There was only 2 bars.
Yeah.
Johnny, I interrupt you, but I remember going in there, probably 5 years old. My Uncle Ted Carpenter used to, all the ale went there to drink after. Well, the bar was there, and I often know as a kid, every one of them had a salt shaker, and they put salt on the top of the beer, and
Right.
it would fizz up. Everybody did it. I don't know what it tasted like, but I was amazed. Salt, and then, that's something nobody does anymore, why they did it.
Yeah, they
What do
used
you-
to pour salt on it. And then some of them used to take an egg, break the egg and put it in the
I never saw that, but I saw the salt. What was the reason for that? It tasted
don't
better? I have no idea. But I was just a little kid, I walked in and, we had to go get him out of there, or whatever.
Vince?
Yeah, do either of you remember the movies Pearls of Pauline being filmed here in Port Henry?
That's who the Arctic
Arctic
City.
City?
Yeah.
That would have been 1920s.
1920s?
Yep, and is the subject of a talk I'm writing now to give later this winter, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
He stayed at the Lee House.
We stayed at Lee House, and the interesting little rabbit hole I'm going down right now is there was a story written. It seems like she did go to a town, I believe it was Keysville, when they had a flu outbreak, and did a little, let's make everybody feel better.
That's
bring
true.
the mood. That part's true. And then apparently her publicist in New York City turned it into a big tale of adventure where she had to take the sled dogs and go through a blizzard to bring the medicine to the town, which was complete garbage. So there's this interesting series of newspaper articles telling that story, telling the counterfactual to that story, and going back and forth. But yeah, she was here a number of times throughout the 1920s, filming in both Saranac Lake, at Arctic City, and apparently at Cheever, which is new to me, and I'm just learning about now. But the at that point defunct mining town of Cheever was rented out to movie studios as sort of a Wild West.
One last question for Joan. World War II, I remember this one. Can't think of, it's a famous movie actress. They were selling war bonds. They came through Port Henry. And she sold war bonds here in Port Henry with a train. Jack told me her name. I'll have to look it up. I mean, it's an old actress from, but she was in Port Henry that day. Sell war bonds. They'd stop in every town, sell war bonds. They stopped in Port Henry. I'll look it up, but
I don't know that story. Yeah,
That's true, yeah. She was famous in the day, because Jack said, well, everybody wanted to see her. And she got off the train. I don't know where she went. I don't know how much the war bonds were, but that's how they raised money. They go town to town, and they stopped in Port Henry. I'll look that up. Somewhere I have that stuff written down.
One
And
thing I
he
did-
named her.
One thing I did want to mention is about our band concerts we used to have. We had a beautiful bandstand out here, a beautiful bandstand. And every Wednesday night, they'd have band concerts, mostly the music, as I remember, like march music. You've probably been there, John,
Very
back
nice.
in the times. Well, as a kid there, I lived down, like I say, down on Rice Lane, Rice Street. And it was, my cousin Julie Rondo was down there, and her dad worked as a baker at Finney's Bakery. Finney's Bakery was up at the end of Broad Street.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah, on the right side. And so we'd go up at night and, on a Wednesday night, and we'd go in the back and get a fresh loaf of bread and sit out on the front steps and break bread. Yeah. The next day, we'd go up, or on Saturday, we'd go up and help her dad frost the cupcakes. At that time, you took the frosting, there's your cupcake, and you frost it. Believe it or not.
No piping back.
Nobody got sick.
No rubber gloves, no rubber gloves.
I got one more question for Joan,
You're
if you
right,
could
right,
take it.
just above Gilbo's store, remember?
Uh,
That French bakery?
no, I can't think of that one right now.
Yeah, French bakery.
And Grand Union was up there at the
The
end.
Grand Union was up farther, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Gilbo, French bakery, and Aurelio repair
Yeah,
shoes.
really, that's, I got that.
That was all one block.
Yeah, yeah. There was a fire way up there at
Right.
one time, and there are
Right.
pictures of that too. The old time.
Joan, I gotta ask you one more. Do you remember Labor Days when, way before my time, is it Harry Roderick used to jump off the building here?
Yes.
And catch him in the
I was
net.
talking about
He'd
that.
do that every Labor Day. The corner building where the Chinese are.
And
On
they
that
must use
pole.
blankets or something at that time.
Well,
right?
they had some kind of a contraption.
Yeah.
And he'd jump off on Labor Day
Yeah.
and the firemen would catch him.
Yeah,
But
had
that
that-
was way before my time, and I don't know
Big
if you ever saw
building.
him jump off.
Yeah,
Yeah. Harry Roderick, I think was his name.
yeah.
But he used to do that for Labor Day stuff.
That,
He was a cop for a while.
Yes.
Pardon?
yeah.
His,
That building-
his daughter married, George Hughes.
Okay. Well, yeah, so you saw him actually do that, Joe?
I did not see
Oh,
him,
okay,
but
just, I
I
don't know
had
anybody that
pictures,
ever actually
yeah,
saw him, but they've got a picture of him.
There's
kind of like
pictures,
standing
yeah.
out there.
with the fire department, yeah.
That's pretty good lead.
Yeah, yeah. That building, in the old days, I have a picture of it also. As you are standing in the road facing to the east, to the west, excuse me, there's a place where you would step down, and that's where there was a hat store there for the women. And up on the sidewalk area, there was a telegraph and a barber shop where my grandfather had his barber shop as well. The second floor had a newspaper office. The top floor had a synagogue at that time. On there, that big building of the times. And there was a one floor that had, and I don't quite remember that. There's some place where some company organization was having meetings on there. But I know you want to, you have so much history.
I know, it's hard to know where to
Okay,
start.
wait a minute, one more question.
I have one. Johnny, Reed, I was first. Johnny,
Yes.
You're too young to remember much about Prohibition.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever hear
But
the
I know
story?
my parents were bootleggers.
Oh, okay.
They
Not well about barrooms,
They used to
did
call
you?
it the ransack. And when the cops come to find out and raid them, they couldn't find the booze because it was all hidden under the vegetable gardens and that. Oh, yeah.
Well, I wonder where all the barrooms did in Witherby at that time for
See,
alcohol.
see where we lived, it looked right across the road, which is very short, was Hog Alley. I don't know what they call it now. No, Hog Alley is where the where Bible post office.
Where post office,
Yeah,
yeah, still is.
It is all Allen, yeah, it is.
Go right up to the end. At very end, Pedro's lived there. That's the Adam Pedro's estate right there. That's where the Pedros, the Hookeros, the Moonies, Ritsons, they all lived there. Just a dead-end street, and we lived across from there out in the field, what we call the ram pasture. I was called ram pasture. Even going to school, hey, ram pasture, what are you doing? And we used to walk from there to school. You didn't ride a bus. Over in Mango in Whitby, when you went to school, you had to be at least 1 mile away to get the bus. Otherwise, you walked. And we used to walk back and forth for dinner, for lunch, or you brought a brown paper bag and you went to the gymnasium. And you kept your sneakers in the school. You didn't come back home and go to back to school with your sneakers. You put your sneakers in a locker and you wore your shoes. Boys and girls were well dressed back then. You went to church in a suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how well dressed. And a lot of people don't believe this. St. Michael's Church in Witherby. You went to church in a suit and you paid to go to church. You just don't believe that, do you?
In Canada, where I live, we paid to go into church.
Bernie A.P. sat in the back there with his coins. 90 cents, 90 cents, 90 cents, 80 cents, 80 cents, 80. If you came in, you give him $1, he'd do right where to give it. And you didn't walk by without paying 10 cents. You paid to go to church.
I saw it in Canada when I was a little kid.
You remember,
Collect at the door.
when I went to school, the girls could not wear slacks. The only time we were allowed to wear slacks was if there was an event coming up, like a dance, and you wanted to decorate the gym, okay, you can wear slacks.
Well,
Okay.
thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Just a couple of upcoming things. I mentioned I am putting together a talk on the film industry here in Moriah. Look for that in the next couple of months. Depends on how much info you can give me that I don't have, so we'll talk. I'm looking for a few details. And also on Saturday, November 22nd, there's going to be an event out at Crown Point State Historic Site at 2 p.m. Chris Sabek of Lake Champlain Maritime Museum is going to be doing a talk on new excavations and archaeological work from Ferris's Bay or Arnold's Bay on the map today and how that played into the American Revolution. And the connection to here is as part of that. I'm going to be opening up and talking about this document, which is in our collection, which is all of the material related to the land transfer that happened in 1910 between Witherby and Sherman, who owned what is now Crown Point State Historic Site and the location of the two forts. They donated that land to the state, and when you donated land to the state back in the early 20th century, you got some very beautiful gilded documents. So we'll have these out to take a look at as well. If you follow our Facebook page, we'll put that up there. You can double check the dates.
Any update from the Smithsonian on the iron ore samples?
No, nothing yet. You know, as you can imagine, Smithsonian is in a bit of an uproar right now and trying to work their way through the current environment.
That should make headlines if it finally.
Yeah,
proven,
I'll give the 20-second synopsis. I was approached by one of the gentlemen that runs the natural history section of Smithsonian. Was it last summer?
I think it was last summer, yeah.
They have received permission to take samples from the original Philadelphia, one of the gunboats from Benedict Arnold's fleet, October 11th, 1776, that was raised from the bottom of the lake in the 1930s and now resides in the Smithsonian. And they now have permission to take iron samples from the boat, and we're going to attempt to match that to samples taken from the very early ironworks at Cheever, where Mr. Skeen was working, small operation, but he was removing iron ore from there, and the story is, and it's quite possible that iron was smelted down and used as part of Benedict Arnold's fleet on the lake. So we're looking for chemical confirmation of that. Yep.
That'd be pretty cool.
So hopefully I'll have good news on that soon, but yeah, things have slowed down a little bit in Washington. Thank you all for coming. I would also mention that on our YouTube page, You can watch Mr. Neggia's first talk here from about a year ago covering all of his activities in Europe during World War II. So a very, very interesting talk to go back to as well.
What I want to tell you, probably a lot of you don't remember, or no, you wouldn't remember, but way back then, when I was a kid, coming up the Mineville to Witherby, we used to have the Greyhound bus. Probably wondering, what is the Greyhound bus doing up in this area? They used to travel up here and pick up and drop off, and after the Greyhound bus came the Adirondack Trailways. And they've done the same thing, and when they eliminated it, then you have local, Belden and Edwards, had their bus bringing miners back and forth. But when it first started way back, you imagine Greyhound bus in the middle of town? Nobody, they were there.
But this was a pretty booming place back then, though, wasn't it?
What's that?
This was a pretty booming place back then.
Oh, it was.
Was Mineville and Witherby around 6,000 people, or am I wrong? I forget what the numbers are, but they were big. Now,
Bigger than today, for sure.
Didn't
Oh,
Wayne's, peak
There
out
was a
4,000
booming place.
people at one time?
It's just like where the campsites are, that never was there before. That was all built by Republic Steel. And Joe Brooks was a bulldozer operator, and he used to level it off, and he had the bulldozer at one time he worked alone, and he was working on his bulldozer off, and his clothes must have got caught on something, and the bulldozer started to back it up, and he was hooked, and he couldn't unhook himself. He done all he could, but he couldn't. Bulldozer went in the water, and Joe Brooks died drowning. Because when it was time to punch out, one, where's Joe? And Joe didn't show up. So they went and found out, and they found him. He was drowned, hooked to the butt. From then on, they never had anybody work alone. They always had somebody else just sitting around if they had to watch the guy work. But Joe Brooks drowned making that beach.
remember the priest that took a ride on the railroad with the engineer poured down in Mineville? Well, the train broke loose, and it went off into the lake, and he drowned. The guy drowned. The priest lived, the other guy drowned. There's pictures of him taking the crane, getting the engine out, right here by, on the waterfront, because it used to be up high. Remember when and the train lost the brakes, whatever, and the priest got a ride of his life, and they went into the lake, and the other guy knocked himself out, drowned, and the priest, he came up. I mean, there's tons of those railroad stories that,
Joan, thank you very much for the information.